Chapter 1: The Siege of Shadows. Paragraph 1: The sky split open like the back of a scaly beast. A tear so vast and jagged it seemed to drink the last remnants of sunlight. From the rent in reality poured shadows, solid as stone, moving with a purpose that was unmistakably malevolent. A single figure darted through the chaos, a woman, with hair like the dark fringe of a storm cloud. She stumbled, a gasp escaping her lips as she clutched at her chest, fingers clutching something hidden beneath her blouse. The shadows swarmed, intent on reclaiming whatever it was she carried. Paragraph 2: Halt! Roared a voice from the chaos, booming like thunder. A figure materialized out of the shadow throng, its presence overwhelming even amidst the darkness. It was a being of pure shadow itself, its form fluid and menacing. "Drop the crystal!" "No, no!" she shouted back, her voice echoing strangely in the sudden silence that followed her defiance. Her heart pounded in her ears as she clutched the small artifact tighter. "It's not yours to take." Paragraph 3: The shadow being let out a snarl, tendrils of darkness stretching towards her. She ducked and rolled, the shadowy fingers missing by mere inches. The air was charged with electricity now, crackling with the tension of an impending storm. Each step she took was calculated, but her pursuers seemed to know her every move before she did. Paragraph 4: She turned an alley corner sharply, her eyes scanning desperately for an escape route. Behind her, the shadow being's laughter sent shivers down her spine. It sounded like nails on a chalkboard, echoing in the narrow confines of the streets. Yet there was something else in its tone, something almost hungry. Paragraph 5: Tell me, human, it hissed through the darkness, what makes you think you can defy us? You're just another pawn in our game. Its voice twisted like a snake, wrapping around her thoughts, seeping into her fear. The cold whisper of power surrounded her, but her resolve didn't falter. Paragraph 6: I'm not a pawn, she spat out, stumbling forward and almost falling. Her hand tightened on the crystal. It pulsed in response, sending a jolt of warmth through her fingertips. I won't let you take this. Paragraph 7: Behind her, there was a sudden shift, a ripple in the fabric of reality itself. She spun around, eyes wide with horror, as a massive dragon-like creature loomed over the edge of the rooftop, wings spread wide enough to block out the moon. Its scales glimmered under a faint luminescence, something she hadn't noticed before in her panic. Paragraph 8: Draconess, the shadow being murmured, voice dripping with disdain. We should have expected it to come for her. Stay back, she shouted at both pursuers, her mind racing. She couldn't let them take the crystal. Whatever it was, she knew it held something crucial. The crystal pulsed again, this time with a stronger current of energy. Paragraph 9: The dragon's eyes were a piercing blue, almost glowing in the dark. It tilted its head as if studying her. Then it spoke, voice like thunder but somehow soothing. I can help you, human. Hand over the crystal and let me protect it. Paragraph 10: No, she said firmly, though her resolve wavered slightly under the weight of its gaze. Not until I understand what's going on. Paragraph 11: The shadow being chuckled again, a sound that made her shiver. You're out of your league, human. Hand it over and maybe we'll spare you. Paragraph 12: Never, she hissed back, her voice filled with defiance. She felt the crystal's power surging through her veins, urging her to fight. But as she looked at the dragon, there was something in its eyes that gave her posse a fleeting moment of understanding and shared purpose. Paragraph 13: Draconess tilted its head again, this time with a hint of approval. Very well then, we will protect it together. Its wings flared, sending a gust of wind that pushed back the shadows momentarily. Paragraph 14. Not today. The shadow being snarled, tendrils of darkness coalescing into claws that lashed out at Draconus. The dragon twisted aside, avoiding the strike with a fluid grace that belied its immense size. Shadows swirled around it like a storm. Paragraph 15. The woman felt an urgent need to act. She couldn't just stand by and let them fight over something she didn't fully understand, but she knew she had to do something before it was too late. The crystal hummed in her hand, a silent plea for her to take action. Paragraph 16. Wait, she shouted, rushing forward despite the danger. Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife, surprising both Draconus and the shadow being. I can help. Paragraph 17. The shadow being snarled, but its eyes flickered with curiosity. You think you can help? Tell me, human, what makes you so special? Paragraph 18. She hesitated, her mind racing. She had no idea who she was or why they were after her. All she knew was that she held something incredibly powerful and dangerous. The crystal hummed louder in response to her thoughts, almost as if it was trying to communicate with her. Paragraph 19. Because, she began, her voice wavering slightly, "I'm not who you think I am." She felt the sudden clarity of a memory. Was it a vision flashing in her mind, a world filled with light and shadow, a place where humans and dragons lived side by side? Paragraph 20. The dragon's eyes gleamed in the dark, almost as if it understood her thoughts. "You see more than you think," Draconus rumbled, voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate through the air itself. Paragraph 21. Prove it. The shadow being challenged, its form growing darker, more sinister. "Show me what you are." Paragraph 22. I will. She held out her hand, opening her palm to reveal the pulsing crystal. It glowed brighter, the light illuminating her face with an almost ethereal glow. The shadows recoiled, as if repelled by the light. Paragraph 23. Interesting. The shadow being hissed, a note of surprise in its tone. "You are not ordinary, human." Paragraph 24. She nodded, the crystal's energy giving her strength. She knew Nosh was no longer just an ordinary woman. She was something more, something that the shadow being and even Draconus hadn't expected, and she would use that to her advantage. Paragraph 25. With a surge of power, she launched herself forward, moving with a speed that belied her initial clumsiness. The crystal glowed brighter, casting light on the shadows as she dodged and weaved through them. She was no longer just fleeing, she was fighting back. Paragraph 26. The shadow being let out a roar of fury as she closed in on it, her movements fluid and precise. "You will not escape," it lashed out, tendrils of darkness coiling around her, but she twisted out of its grasp with surprising agility. The crystal's light pulsed fiercely now, illuminating the path forward. Paragraph 27. "Then come get me," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. She felt the dragon's power surging through her. Their shared purpose making her stronger than ever before. "We will protect what is ours." Paragraph 28. The shadow being's eyes narrowed, a look of intense focus in its dark gaze. "You will not hide from us forever," it hissed, voice dripping with menace. Paragraph 29. "We'll see about that," she replied, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. She glanced at Draconus, who nodded in silent agreement. Together, they would face the shadows head on. Paragraph 30. And as the battle raged around them, the light from the crystal continued to grow, casting a brilliant glow across the city, signaling the start of a new era for all those caught in the Emperor's wars. The opening section ends with a strong hook, setting up the mysterious world of alien empires and shadowy foes with a heroine who is much more than she seems. Tension builds through action and dialogue, leaving readers eager to know what happens next. The silence between them was thick, charged with an unspoken tension that made it hard to breathe. Sarah's eyes darted nervously around the darkened room, her fingers tapping restlessly against the edge of the antique mahogany desk. She knew she had to say something, but every word seemed too heavy, too final. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Tom's jaw tightened, and he leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. The light from the single bulb above them cast long shadows across his face, making his expression impossible to read. "I'm sure," he replied, his voice devoid of any emotion. Sarah's heart sank as she felt the cold edge of betrayal creeping into her soul. She had trusted him with everything, her secrets, her fears, her dreams, and now he was about to walk away from it all because of a decision had made in an instant. The room seemed to close in around them, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "What if I can't do this without you?" Tom's lips curved into a bitter smile. "I thought I taught you everything. You're strong enough to stand on your own." His words stung, but there was an honesty in them that made her stomach churn with a mix of dread and resignation. She pushed herself up from the desk and walked over to the window, drawing back the curtains to let the moonlight pour in. The silver glow illuminated the city below, casting long shadows that mirrored the ones inside her. A sudden noise downstairs startled both of them out of their thoughts. Footsteps crunched on the gravel outside their apartment was situated just above a small garden, and the sounds echoed through the night air. Tom's eyes flicked to the door, and Sarah could feel his unease without even looking at him. "Is someone here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom's hand went instinctively to the handle of his pocket knife, hidden beneath his shirt. "I don't know," he said, his voice tense. The footsteps paused outside their door, and then moved on, continuing down the street. A shiver ran through Sarah, not just from the chill in the air, but from a sense of impending danger that she couldn't ignore. "We need to move now," Tom said, rising to his feet. "They've seen us or followed us here. We have to go." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process the urgency of his words. "What do we take?" Tom's gaze met hers, and there was something in his eyes, a fleeting glimpse of regret, that made her heart clench painfully. "Nothing," he said firmly, his voice hard. "We leave everything behind. We start fresh." Sarah's eyes stung as she tried to push away the thought of packing up her life into a few bags and leaving behind years of memories. "But what about no buts?" Tom interrupted, stepping closer to her. There was no room for argument in his tone. "We can't afford to be caught." The realization hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. The urgency in his voice, the hard set of his jaw, it was clear he meant every word. She reached into her bag, pulling out a single photograph of the two of them standing on the edge of a cliff at sunset, hands clasped tight. For a moment, she clutched it to her chest, then tucked it away in her pocket, as if the paper itself could protect them from whatever lay ahead. "Let's go," Tom said, reaching out to grab her hand. His touch was cool but steady, grounding her just enough to step into the unknown. Together, they moved through the shadows of the night, their hearts pounding with the rhythm of fear and determination. The city stretched out before them, a sprawling maze of streets and alleys, all leading to their uncertain future. Every turn brought new possibilities, but also new dangers, and Sarah's grip on Tom's hand tightened as they set off into the darkness, leaving behind everything familiar. As they disappeared around the corner, The apartment building stood silent and empty in the moonlight, a sentinel to the lives left behind. Inside, the mahogany desk remained untouched, a testament to the life that once was and the choices that would define the ones to come. Chapter 7 Echoes of the Past. Alicia stepped into the silence of the study, her breath visible in the cold air. The mahogany desk was pristine and untouched, a relic from the lives lived before the catastrophe. She reached out tentatively, her fingers tracing the edge of an old photograph, barely touching but feeling every crevice and line that spoke of years lost. Her hand closed around the picture frame, and she turned to look at Zarya. "I can feel it," Alicia whispered, her voice barely above a breath, as she looked down at the image before transferring her gaze back to Zarya. "The history here, and yet there's something else." Zarya's eyes were a mixture of curiosity and understanding, her presence a reminder of their shared mission and the unspoken bond that had formed between them over the past few weeks. They didn't need to speak much, a glance was enough to convey their urgency and resolve. "We should start with the archives," Zarya suggested, her voice calm but tinged with an undercurrent of purpose. "The old journals might hold clues." Alicia nodded and led the way into the room where the shelves were lined with leather-bound books and scrolls, dust resting lightly on each surface, as if waiting for someone to brush it away. She lifted a thick tome and placed it on the desk, flipping through the yellowed pages. Each turn revealed stories of a time when this planet was not just a desolate wasteland, but a thriving hub of knowledge and culture. "Alicia," Zarya called out softly from behind her, "look at this." Alicia turned to see Zarya holding a scroll with intricate symbols etched along its surface. She stepped closer, her heart racing as she recognized the symbols were not just any language. They were remnants of an ancient civilization, something that had been lost to time. "This is draconic," Zarya said, her voice reverent. "I've only seen fragments like these in my people's archives." The discovery was not just an artifact, it was a key to understanding the past. But there was a sense of unease settling deep within Alicia's gut as she realized that something about these symbols felt off. "Zarya, have you ever seen this?" Alicia pointed to a particular symbol that seemed out of place amongst the others, almost like a deliberate misplacement. "No," Zarya replied, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "This symbol is wrong. It doesn't belong here." The realization was sobering. Someone had tampered with history. The implications were chilling. Not only were they looking for answers, but they might be walking into a trap set by whoever had done this. "Someone's been here," Alicia said grimly, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "And they left clues to throw us off." Zarya nodded, her own sense of urgency growing. "We need to find out why." Their search turned more methodical as they pored over every document, every artifact, leaving no stone unturned. The deeper they delved into the archives, the more evidence they uncovered of meddling anomalies in dates, inconsistencies and recorded events, and strange technological items that didn't seem to fit their timeline. Just as they were about to head towards the next room, Zarya suddenly stiffened beside Alicia. "What is it?" Alicia asked. "Shadows," Zarya replied in a low tone. "I can sense others nearby." Alicia's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of movement or sound. The sudden tension hung heavy in the air, every moment stretching into agonizing seconds. "Split up and cover more ground," Alicia whispered urgently. "Meet back here if you find something or anything out of place." Zarya vanished silently through a door, leaving Alicia alone with her thoughts and fears. The silence was oppressive as she moved cautiously from room to room, every sound sharpening her awareness. She found nothing suspicious until she entered the main hall and saw the shadowy figures lurking at its corners. "Freeze!" she shouted, drawing her weapon. Shadows melted back into darkness, revealing no one but her racing heart. Alicia hurried back to the study, finding Zarya waiting with a look of grim determination. The two shared a glance before Zarya spoke. "They must have known we were coming, and they've left us hints, breadcrumbs," Alicia added, frustration evident in her voice as she slammed the book down on the desk with a thud. "But why? What's their game?" The revelation that they were being led was both terrifying and exhilarating. They needed to decipher the signs left behind to discover the truth. "Zarya, focus on the symbols," Alicia said, her voice commanding. "I'll review the dates and any inconsistencies." Together, they worked feverishly, piecing together the puzzle of what happened here. Every new clue brought them closer to the heart of the mystery, but also deeper into danger. As night fell, their resolve hardened, but so did the risks. Hours later, Alicia stumbled upon a ledger that hinted at a conspiracy reaching back generations, deception and betrayal written in meticulous handwriting. Zarya, meanwhile, managed to translate a fragment of Draconic that seemed to hint at warnings from her people's past. "It says, 'Guard the truth,'" she murmured, eyes wide with realization. They knew something would happen. With each new discovery, the stakes rose. They had to act swiftly before the shadows closed in around them entirely. But as they prepared to make their move, an unexpected figure emerged from the depths of the house. The old keeper of records. "Eldor?" Alicia questioned cautiously, her weapon ready but hesitating. "You know what you must do, Or's voice rumbled with authority. "The archives hold the key." Before either could respond, Or stepped aside to reveal a hidden door leading deeper into the house's foundations, a passage barely visible to the naked eye. It was a final test of their resolve and trust in each other. "The truth lies beneath," Or said cryptically, before stepping back into shadow. Alicia and Zarya exchanged a glance. It was now or never. They moved silently down the narrow staircase, the weight of history pressing heavily upon them with every step. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it felt, yet there was no turning back, not when they were so close. At the bottom, the room was dimly lit by old, flickering lanterns hanging from the walls. Ancient machinery and relics littered the chamber, each one suggesting a world of advanced technology and forgotten knowledge. But in the center of the room stood something else entirely, a large stone tablet carved with the forbidden Draconic symbol Alicia had noticed before. "This is where it all leads," Zarya said, her voice shaking slightly as she approached the tablet. "We need to understand what it means." Alicia nodded, stepping closer. The words etched into the stone were clear, but terrifying. "Beware the false god." Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from above, followed by the sound of rushing footsteps. Their pursuers had caught up. There was no time for hesitation now. They had to act fast. "Zarya," Alicia said urgently, pulling her toward the tablet. "We need to find out what this symbol means now." Together, they examined the symbols, focusing on the one that felt out of place. It represented something else entirely, a distortion in reality itself. "It's a warning," Zarya said, her eyes wide with realization. "Against someone or something." Just as she spoke, the ancient machinery around them started to hum and whir to life. A beam of light burst forth from the machinery, illuminating the room in an eerie glow. The tablet began to pulse, the symbols shifting and changing before their eyes. "Quickly," Alicia urged, trying to decipher the evolving script. "What does it say now?" Zarya translated quickly, her voice trembling slightly. "It speaks of a being, an entity that should never have been unleashed upon this world." The room grew colder as the machines whirred louder, and Alicia felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. "We need to stop it," she said firmly, grabbing Zarya's hand and pulling her toward a large control panel on the wall. "Before it's too late." But even as they reached for the controls, the door behind them slammed shut, sealing off their only exit. Alicia turned to see the shadows closing in, their forms slowly coalescing into figures of darkness with eyes glowing red. "We're trapped," Zarya whispered, fear clear in her voice despite her efforts to remain calm. Alicia's heart pounded as she looked back at the control panel, then at the shadowy figures pressing in closer. The tablet was still pulsing, emitting a dark energy that seemed to sicken them both. "We don't have time," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "We need to stop this thing now." Zarya nodded, her resolve steeled despite the fear. She reached out and began to input commands into the control panel, trying to shut down the ancient machinery and seal away whatever evil it had awakened. Above them, the door leading back up was slowly closing, cutting off their last chance of escape. Alicia watched in horror as the shadows grew bolder, stepping forward as if ready to attack. "We can't let them," Zarya started, her voice cutting off as she stumbled backward from the control panel, her hands grasping at her head as if in pain. Alicia spun around just as Zarya cried out, "Look!" Following her gaze, Alicia saw a flickering light from under the door that had led them through. A single beam shone through the cracks and grew brighter, shining directly onto the control panel. As the light intensified, the symbols on the stone tablet began to shift again. "Zarya, what is it?" Alicia asked urgently, moving to help her friend despite the shadows closing in. "It's guiding us," Zarya said breathlessly, her eyes filled with understanding. "This is our only chance." The beam of light grew stronger, and the machinery whirred louder as if responding to some external command. Alicia watched as the symbols on the tablet shifted once more, forming new messages that glowed in the dark. "Guard the truth against the false god." The realization hit Alicia with the force of a physical blow. This isn't a warning, it's an act of protection. With renewed purpose, she grabbed Zarya's hand again, leading her toward the control panel as the shadows advanced. "We need to activate it," Alicia said firmly, "before whatever's down here can fully emerge." Zarya nodded, her fear replaced by grim determination. She returned to the control panel and began entering commands at lightning speed, their hands moving together in seamless coordination. The machinery hummed louder, emitting a low growl as the dark energy intensified. The shadows coalesced into menacing forms that seemed to move with a life of their own, closing in rapidly. "We're running out of time," Zarya said, her voice strained as she worked against the clock. Alicia watched with growing horror as the shadows advanced, and she knew what needed to be done. She turned to face the tablet, placing her hand over the final symbol that had been causing so much trouble. As she closed her eyes and focused her energy, the symbols on the tablet began to glow brighter, shifting one last time. Zarya looked at her in shock, realizing what Alicia was doing, offering herself as a sacrifice to protect their world from an ancient evil. "No," Zarya whispered, her hand reaching out to Alicia's shoulder as if she could stop her. But it was too late. With a final push, Alicia activated the tablet, and the machinery around them roared to life, releasing a blinding burst of light that forced both women to shield their eyes. When the light dimmed and Alicia opened her eyes, she saw the shadows dissipating, the darkness receding as if it had never been there. The control panel glowed green, confirming that whatever evil had been awakened was now contained once more. Alicia felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion as she slumped against the control panel, every part of her body trembling from the exertion. Zarya was beside her, equally spent, staring at Alicia in a mix of awe and fear. "What happened?" Zarya asked, voice barely above a whisper. "We stopped it," Alicia said with a tired smile, her eyes closing as she began to drift into unconsciousness. "We did it." Zarya's hand tightened around Alicia's wrist, her other reaching out to press the button on the control panel that would seal the room for good. As the lights dimmed and the machinery quieted, she looked down at the woman lying beside her with a mixture of sorrow and gratitude. "We'll make sure this stays sealed," Zarya said softly, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "And we'll protect the truth." With those final words, the darkness faded entirely as Zarya activated the final command, sealing away their paths to new beginning for a world that had almost been lost to shadow. The moment the door closed behind them, sealing the dark room away forever, Alicia and Zarya urged into the now still house. The silence was deafening after the chaos below, but it was a peace they both could feel in their bones. The shadows had been driven back, the evil contained, yet standing there, side by side, they knew there was still work to do. The sun was rising in the distance, casting long shadows across the ruins of what was once a thriving community. As Alicia and Zarya stepped outside, she felt a sense of purpose renewed. A new dawn was coming for their world, and they were ready to lead it into a better future. But as they looked up at the sky, something caught Zarya's eye. A strange object moving silently through the air, undetected by the early morning light. Something alien and threatening. "What is that?" Alicia asked, her hand reaching for her weapon. Zarya's eyes narrowed in recognition. "It can't be." The sudden realization hit Alicia with the force of a physical blow. "We're not done here," she said grimly, determination resounding in her voice. And as they turned to face the threat once more, both knew that the battle was far from over. A new journey awaited them, one filled with dangers and challenges they were just beginning to understand. The day had begun under a cloud of mystery, but it was only the start. The echoes of the past lingered, promising revelations and struggles yet to come. Alicia and Zarya stood ready, their bond unbreakable in the face of any challenge at dawn breaking on a new era. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon in hues of fiery orange and vibrant pink, Alicia and Zarya exchanged a nod, their eyes mirroring the steadfast resolve they had come to embody. They had trained for this moment, each movement perfected through countless iterations, each strategy honed against the backdrop of countless battles. The air crackled with an invisible tension as they prepared for what lay ahead. Alicia's heart pounded in her chest, a symphony of adrenaline and anticipation intertwined with the ever-present knowledge that failure was not an option. Beside her, Zarya's aura hummed with an energy both protective and formidable. They were not just warriors, they were stewards of hope, guardians against the encroaching darkness. The ground beneath their feet trembled subtly, as a massive form emerged from the shadows. The creature was unlike anything Alicia had ever seen, a twisted amalgamation of metal and flesh, its presence overwhelming even before it fully materialized. Its eyes glowed with an eerie, malevolent light, scanning the landscape for signs of weakness. Alicia's hand tightened around her sword, the familiar weight a source of comfort in such chaotic moments. She knew Zarya's thoughts mirrored her own. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath, they moved in unison, their steps precise and calculated. The creature let out a deafening roar, its voice echoing across the battlefield as it launched itself towards them with inhuman speed. Alicia's blade flashed, slicing through air to meet the beast's attack head-on. Metal clashed against metal, sparks flying as their weapons met with incredible force. Zarya's fists cracked forward, each punch delivering devastating blows to the creature's armored plating. As they fought, Alicia couldn't help but think of the countless nights spent in strategy sessions, of the sacrifices made, and the bonds formed. This was more than just a battle, it was a testament to their strength, a declaration of defiance against an oppressive darkness that sought to smother all light. Their movements were a dance of death and survival, every strike calculated to wear down the enemy's defenses while safeguarding each other's weaknesses. The air buzzed with energy, charged by their combined efforts and the sheer will to overcome this monstrous challenge. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows behind them, Alicia felt her muscles burn from exertion. But she didn't waver, drawing strength from Zarya's unwavering support. With a fierce cry, they combined their energies for one final, decisive blow. Alicia lunged forward, her sword gleaming as it cut through the creature's defenses, while Zarya delivered a powerful punch to its core. The creature recoiled, the fabric of reality around it seeming to ripple and distort under the weight of their assault. In a blinding flash, it disintegrated into nothingness, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of its roar. Breathing heavily, Alicia and Zarya stood amidst the silence, their victory palpable but bittersweet. The dawn had indeed broken on a new era, one where hope flickered brightly against the backdrop of uncertainty. Yet, they knew the fight was far from over. More challenges awaited, each test pushing them closer to their ultimate goal. Exchanging a determined glance, Alicia and Zarya prepared to face whatever lay ahead, their bond as unbreakable as ever in the face of any challenge that might come their way. The silence that followed was thick with anticipation. Alicia's heart pounded in her chest, echoing the rhythm of Zarya's heartbeat from where their hands were clasped tightly together. The air around them shimmered slightly, a prelude to whatever magic or turmoil was about to unfold. Alicia turned to Zarya, her eyes searching for any signs of fear or doubt beneath the protective mask she wore. Instead, she found unyielding support and an unwavering promise that they would face whatever lay ahead together. A small smile played on Alicia's lips as she reached out with her free hand to brush away a strand of hair from Zarya's forehead, tucking it behind her ear. The gesture was tender, filled with a quiet understanding that words couldn't express. Zarya's eyes softened, but the steel in them remained unshaken. She leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss onto Alicia's knuckles, sending a shiver of warmth through Alicia's body. It was a silent declaration of their connection, a promise to each other that no matter what happened, they would remain anchored to one another. The shimmering aura around them intensified, and suddenly the room felt colder, the air thinner, as if the atmosphere was being sucked into an unseen vortex. Dark shadows began to materialize from the edges of the room, coalescing into forms both familiar and terrifying. A figure began to take shape at the center of the room, its presence growing more palpable with every passing second. Alicia's grip on Zarya tightened as she felt the weight of the responsibility that was being shouldered by their bond. This wasn't just any ordinary confrontation, but a test of their union, of the strength and depth of their shared commitment. The shadow creature started to speak, its voice like an icy wind whispering secrets into the room. "You have come far, both of you," it hissed, its dark form stretching and twisting. "But now the true challenge begins. Will your bond be enough?" Alicia's voice was steady when she replied, "We face this together. Our bond is unbreakable." Zarya nodded, her eyes blazing with resolve. "Alicia is right. We will not falter." The shadow twisted further, becoming an amalgamation of memories and fears, a mirror reflecting the deepest recesses of their minds. Alicia saw flashes of past failures and moments of pain, but also victories and shared joys. Each memory seemed to strengthen her resolve, turning her fear into a powerful source of determination. Zarya's vision was flooded with images of their journey so far, each step forward etched in her mind. She saw the sacrifices Alicia had made, and the unspoken promises she kept. The weight of responsibility grew heavier as the shadow entity continued to push, but Zarya held fast, drawing strength from Alicia's unwavering trust. As the confrontation reached its peak, the tension between them became almost physical. The air crackled with energy as both Alicia and Zarya poured their emotions, their willpower, into the fight. Alicia's courage was fueled by the knowledge that Zarya stood beside her, and Zarya's strength came from the unspoken promise of mutual support. The shadow's form began to waver as it struggled to break through their defenses. With one final push, Alicia stepped forward, her voice clear and resolute. "We won't let this tear us apart." Zarya nodded, her voice equally firm. "Together, we can overcome anything." In that moment, the shadow entity recoiled, its power waning as it recognized the unbreakable nature of their bond. The room brightened slightly as the oppressive atmosphere began to dissipate. Alicia and Zarya stood tall, their connection palpable and undeniable. The tension in the air eased, replaced by a sense of quiet triumph. They had faced their most significant test, and emerged stronger for it. As they caught their breath, Alicia reached out to brush her fingers lightly over Zarya's cheek, drawing a deep breath that seemed to fill her with renewed energy. Her touch was soft but full of intent, promising that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would always be there. Zarya's eyes met Alicia's in a shared moment of understanding and resolve. A single tear slid down her cheek, a symbol of the vulnerability that bound them, the fears they faced together, and the love that sustained them. "We're not alone," Alicia whispered, her voice resonating with a profound sense of peace and clarity. Zarya nodded, a small, sad smile on her lips. "We never will be." In the quiet aftermath, the air buzzed with a latent energy that hinted at future challenges. Yet their resolve burned brighter than ever. The bond between Alicia and Zarya had been tested but strengthened, leaving them ready to face whatever came next together. Alicia's final words were soft, almost inaudible, but full of meaning always. That single word hung in the air, a promise of unyielding support, an eternal vow of companionship that would never waver. The silence that followed was charged with a kind of reverence, as though the air itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what came next. They stood there for several moments, not needing words to communicate their shared sense of duty and commitment. The darkness of the night seemed to wrap around them a cloak of solidarity and strength. When he finally spoke, it was with a quiet but resolute tone that promised much more than mere words ever could. No matter what comes our way, we face it together. His statement was not an invitation for reassurance or agreement. It was a declaration that left no room for doubt. It was the kind of commitment that only deep, enduring friendship can forge in the crucible of shared adversity. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainties and challenges, and yet there was something undeniably empowering about the knowledge that they would confront these obstacles side by side. Each step forward felt less daunting as they walked together, their footsteps blending into a unified rhythm. As dawn began to paint the sky with streaks of orange and pink, they found themselves at the edge of an ancient forest, its towering trees stretching towards the heavens like silent sentinels. The air was crisp with the promise of a new day, but there was an undercurrent of tension that made their muscles taut and their senses keenly alert. Entering the forest, they discovered paths that wound through a labyrinth of foliage and fauna, each step revealing new wonders and dangers. Strange whispers carried on the breeze, speaking in forgotten tongues that only they seemed to hear. The landscape shifted with an eerie fluidity, as if the very fabric of reality was bending to accommodate their passage. Their journey led them to a clearing where a solitary stone tower stood sentinel over the verdant expanse. Its origins were shrouded in mystery, but its presence resonated with ancient power and unspeakable secrets. The tower seemed to pulse with energy, drawing them closer like a magnet. Approaching the base of the tower, they noticed a series of intricate carvings etched into the stone, telling the story of an age-old battle between light and darkness. As they stood before these inscriptions, they felt a connection to the warriors who had once fought here, their spirits echoing through the ages in a timeless symphony. At the top of the tower lay a chamber filled with relics that had lain dormant for centuries. Among them was a glimmering blade, its edge shimmering with an ethereal light. The sword pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and as they drew it from its resting place, the weight of its history settled onto their shoulders. But more than just a physical burden, the blade carried with it a responsibility that transcended material existence. It was not simply a weapon, it was a beacon of hope and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. With it came a legacy of unwavering courage and sacrifice, a testament to the indomitable spirit that can never be extinguished. As they descended from the tower, the sword became an extension of their will, a symbol of unity and defiance. The blade's energy seemed to imbue them with a renewed sense of purpose, its glow becoming a guiding light through the ever-changing landscape. They continued on, navigating treacherous terrain and overcoming formidable foes. Each victory was a testament to their unbreakable bond, each loss a reminder of the battles yet to be fought. But regardless of the outcome, they moved forward with an unyielding resolve, their path illuminated by the flickering flame of their shared determination. In moments of quiet reflection, they would look at one another and see in each other's eyes the promise of tomorrow, a relentless optimism born from an unshakable belief that even the darkest night will eventually give way to dawn. These fleeting glimpses of hope sustained them through trials both small and grand, reminding them that no matter how bleak things seemed, they were never truly alone. And so, as they journeyed deeper into the heart of the unknown, their footsteps marked a path not just of adventure, but of enduring friendship, forged in the fires of shared struggle. They moved forward with grace and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that as long as they walked side by side, no obstacle was insurmountable. The forest continued to grow denser, its shadows thickening with every step. Yet they pressed onward, their hearts filled with an unspoken understanding. The road was long and fraught with peril, but they walked it not just for the destination, but for the journey itself, a journey that would shape them and define them in ways they had never before imagined.